Petraeus met General Allen, who dated Jill Kelly, who knew Monica Lewinsky.
Okay, well, wait a minute, guys. I just got to break in here real quick and just say, I just have one observation that I thought of during the break. This is the kind of subject that you really need to talk about when you're sitting around having a cigar. Don't you think?
Yes, definitely.
That may be what got these guys into this.
This is cigar talk, okay?
That may be what got these guys into this whole mess. No, we are, seriously, folks, Tom Trento, TrentoVision.tv on the video end. What does that mean? I'm getting a lot of people asking, what do you mean you're simulcast? And people actually talk like that. What do you mean you're simulcast? What we mean is this. This is a radio show. You see this thing? This is a microphone. This is a crazy arm that, and it, you know what? When we first got here, we could not do this because it squeaked so much. But we got our own can of WD-40, which you can actually use to get rid of moles on your face or whatever. I mean, it does everything. And we got our own chairs. Nothing squeaks anymore. But we're at a radio station. We do a radio show. And originally, when we started Labor Day, Monday, September 3rd, our work was to analyze national security issues. Little did we know, just 8 days later, one of the most significant failures of any administration in the history of America would occur and would have the potential to take this administration down. But our work was to analyze global issues, national issues, the jihad in America, the nation of Israel, and inform the voters in Florida and indeed the whole country that President Obama was not the right president to be commander-in-chief. So we had a very specific advocacy goal, and we did it. We finished the election. We did the best we can. The numbers are in. We had an impact. Not enough. Our guy lost. President Obama won. We believe he's dangerous as a commander-in-chief for the United States of America. So we are going to be staying on the air 3 to 6 every day. We're going to be allowing opportunities for businesses to sell advertising on the show. And we're soliciting those of you. Many of you have called in already, and we're working on rate cards and all of that. So you can call in or go to tom@TrentoVision.tv. If you're interested in having your business advertised on our show, we'll take anybody that wants to do. You don't have to agree with what we do. We got listeners out there, and they spend money, and that's what you want. You want to get your product in front of people. But we're gonna stick with our specialty. Mark is crushing cans now in the background. And Mike, good. There, we got to keep them hydrated. Keep the staff hydrated. We are going to stick with our area of expertise, national security, in particular Islamic Jihad. Bring you a lot of information on that. But we will deal with the economy because there's no question that you need a strong economy to have a strong national defense. And this president's goal is to weaken the economy, thus trying to save money by weakening the military, and both of those issues are very bad. So we're going to be dealing with those issues. But today we have a special guest, and our special guest has driven all the way from San Francisco, and he just got here. No, Sarasota. I knew it started with an S somewhere. From Sarasota, Florida. And he's not new to the show. He's been on the show several times. You didn't Skype in ever. You just called him. Well, he's here live and in person, and we were so fascinated with his capabilities and insight that we wanted to get him in here. And now we're going to make a ordered shift to some serious analytical work. We'll probably have a little bit of fun too while we're doing this, but we're going to figure out what the hell happened 8 days ago. How could Romney is going to win by a landslide, Dick Morris? How could Dick Morris be so far off? And many of these people be so far off. And where's the 10 million voters? And how did Romney get less votes than John McCain? I mean, none of this stuff makes sense, but it will. Hi, Jamie. You better make all this sense in the world out of this for us. We're counting on you, man.
I will do my best. Thanks.
Jamie Miller is here with us. If we can get him on he's on camera. if that's the camera, if you want to say hello to your wife or your kids or your girlfriend or anybody.
Girlfriend, I hope.
Hopefully they're not watching together.
That would just be a little too enlightened for us.
Petreus is watching now and going, oh, no.
No, don't do that.
Oh, no.
So, hey, General, what do you Yeah, exactly. Why don't you introduce yourself and a little bit of your background for the listeners? The simulcast is the video on the internet,
right.
And that's a radio mic. Hey, that's a pretty cool mic. Look at that.
Right.
Thing.
I am Jamie Miller. I'm a longtime activist within the Republican Party. Way back in the day, the mid-'90s, I was the youngest Republican Party county chairman in the state of Florida. So I think I was 28 or 29 at the time. Little old Sumter County. Most people know that now. The home of the Villages. Oh. Of course, when I was there, we started the first Republican club in the Villages. We had 12 people. I think there's probably something like
13 now?
400 or 500 in the Villages. But I'm also have been married 25 years with 2 kids, 2 grown children.
Very good.
Celebrated the 25th anniversary last June. But during that whole during that whole time, we went back to college, worked for an electric company, came out of college when I was 30, started working for the Republican Party of Florida as a field staff member, became director of field operations for the 2000 election, the subsequent recount in 2001.
Oh, wait a minute, you were involved in 2000?
Yes, I was the director of field operations for the 2000 election, which was interesting because election night I tweeted, and it was amazing. No one tweeted back, no one retweeted, no anything. I was like, did these numbers come in and remind anyone of 2000?
Oh, man.
Because it was just, there was enough bad things going on. You're like, oh, this thing's going to heck in a handbasket. But there were enough good things going on. You're like, oh, this isn't horrible. So it depended on where you were.
That's exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, depending on where you were looking, you know, and the day before, I think I was on election day and said, hey, look towards Pinellas County.
Right.
If we're down 30, 40,000 votes in Pinellas County, we're in bad shape. You know, it turned out to be, you know, not like 20,000. So you're like, oh, this isn't, the election's not going horrible here. And then you look at Dade, and it's like, it's trending towards 200, which was horrible.
Yeah.
You know, but
let's do one thing.
So anyway, so
let's
here,
get you introduced in terms of your background.
Right. So anyway, so we're so I was a former became director of field operations, executive director of the Republican Party. I've worked on 5 statewide campaigns in Florida, 1 in West Virginia. And then I was also the
lead. Are you from West Virginia?
No.
Where you got a little accent?
My accent is actually from around Ocala, Florida.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, this is kind of an
Ocala.
Ocala.
Sound like you're from Oklahoma or one of those places.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's, I moved down from Pittsburgh when I was 10.
Did you milk cows?
No, never milked a cow. I have thrown a watermelon or 2.
You tipped the cow?
Okay, go ahead.
So,
where'd you go to school?
I went to University of Florida, graduated with a degree in public relations. So, yeah, go Gators.
What year were you?
98.
When were you there? You were there before 98. Yeah, you were.
No, I just claimed it.
But I did go back to school late, so you know, it's kind of a little, you know. So I was an old student, very motivated to get in and get out.
To actually learn, yeah.
Get in and get out. So, like I said, I worked on 5 statewide campaigns here in probably 3 different capacities: campaign manager, senior advisor, or consultant. And I mostly consult on smaller races at this point. I was the lead consultant for the North Carolina House campaigns in 2010 when they took over the House for the first time and elected just their 2nd Republican Speaker of the House in the history of the state, or since Reconstruction. And and I've also worked in Mississippi and helped Philip Gunn become the first Republican Speaker of the House there in 2011 since Reconstruction. So. Wow. Been around a little bit. It's a shame now because so many people kind of see me as the establishment, and I still kind of see myself as the original Tea Party guy. You know, got really involved in 93, 94 when this first round of Hillary Care came around, and that was kind of what motivated me to get, you know, kind of off the couch, so to speak. So I'm very familiar with what has motivated people this last election, and that's what motivated me, 20 years ago, I guess now. Yeah.
Well, for the sake of the viewers and the listeners, when you say I was a consultant with this race, right? Mm-hmm. let's go to, say, North Carolina 2010.
Right.
2010. And what do you do? Walk people through what a consultant does, what it means.
In that particular case, it was a consultant for the State House campaigns for the North Carolina GOP. So a lot of what I did was gather the polling data. I would do the polling. We would do the mail. And
when you do the polling, because these are new terms, we're trying to give everybody a sense of what's going on. You hire a polling company, right? And then you work together to construct questions, push-pull questions, or whatever.
I do all the polling myself. I don't do the phone calls. I hire a phone company to make the phone calls, but I write the questions, do all the analysis.
Now, how do you write the questions? Because I mean, you're consulting for a particular perspective or person, right? So what do you do? You sit down and have meetings?
More often than not, to me, there's two major parts of a campaign that no one ever really sees. The first is the budget, and the second is research. We all kind of see some polling or the polling that campaigns release, but those are the two things that people never see that a consultant would be involved with. Would be, if you can't run a business, you can't run a campaign. 80% of a campaign is budgeting, in my opinion. Like, it's when you have the money, when you spend it, and how you spend it. That's really one of the major determining factors of a successful campaign. And then you start talking about messaging, what you do with the research, opposition research, how you spend money, either clarifying your opponent or pushing your own agenda, depending on what voters you need to move. So I don't know if I answered your question.
No. You go in. It is a battle. You go in. You take an analysis of where everyone's at. Mm-hmm. So you count the number of voters in the given district, who's on your side, who's not, and then how many votes you need to win, and then you look at the sectors of those groups. Let's say you need the women. You come up with a message for women.
Right.
And now if you have to poll, explain to the listeners what a push question is and what a pull question is.
Well, they're two totally different things. I mean, and they're defined in Florida. They're defined by state law. The difference between a push poll and an actual poll. A push poll is determined by a poll that is trying to get a predetermined response, and this is a very important and is more than 1,000 phone calls.
Oh.
So if you're doing most statewide polls that are seen as legitimate are at least 600 respondents. And I think after yesterday's election, I think people will start doing a little bit more because they've obviously missed some polling in Dade County and probably underpolled Dade County. So so when you start talking about a push poll, that's really to get a response, and it's illegal, but that's to get a response from the voter. You're trying to get the voter to respond at the ballot box. And so you're not allowed to call somebody and say, well, do you know that, this guy's an SOB, and you explain why, and you make 20,000 of those phone calls. That's not polling. That's
right.
That's
proper polling, propaganda polling.
That's not polling, but that's what people will consider a push poll.
A push poll, yeah.
And so an actual poll, you can ask the same question in a poll. You're just asking it from a legitimate number of people to determine what groups of people will respond to that issue.
Okay.
And so then you can determine whether or not you want to do a piece of mail or a robocall or something that is maybe not as that's certainly done in a legal way, but as a general rule, push polling is seen as illegal. But people get confused because they'll say, "Oh, I got a push poll last night," and it might be a legitimate poll question, but it's just they were one of the 300 or 400, and so so it's not. So people kind of get a little bit confused by that. The other difference in state law is that if you're calling more than 1,000 people, whether it's a robocall or a live phone call, you have to have a disclaimer, or you're supposed to have a disclaimer where a legitimate poll. Normally at the beginning of the poll, you say, "Oh, this is so and so from doing a poll for National Strategic for Battleground Group, blah blah blah," and so people, if they want to, they can look up Battleground Group and see who we are or whatever.
I had a lot of calls for. I had a lot of polling calls during this election, which I've never had before. So I decided, obviously because I'm interested in the election, I wanted to hear the questions and to to kind of try to figure out who it was who was calling.
Well,
But at the end of each poll, they did say, and if you have any questions about this poll or you want more information about our firm, call, and it gave a phone number
right,
and the name of whoever it was.
and it's usually,
And it was at the end. It wasn't at the beginning, I don't think.
different people do it different ways.
Yeah.
I usually do it at the beginning, but
And then even though I kept pressing number 2 for Mitt Romney, every time one of these different pollsters called, I still got robocalls right before the election from Magic Johnson and Barack Obama on election day telling me which precinct to go vote in, which I didn't get from Romney.
They didn't give up on women. That's what you heard. That's what you were hearing.
Yeah.
They just didn't give up on women at all.
Jamie, are you the guy that calls my house and says, this call is to collect a debt? Are you that guy?
No.
Okay,
No.
good.
I am familiar with those calls, however.
Yes. Well, we have a million questions, and so we establish your expertise. You've been hired by the Republican Party, and you've been hired by candidates and all of that, so you know what you're doing. Okay, why'd we lose? What happened, man?
Well, there's several things that happened. I mean, number one, I think people, about 2 weeks before the election, the Tampa Bay Times called me, and I'm often quoted in papers throughout the state for sure and around the country, and said, the hand-wringing, this is before the first debate. Are you one of the hand-wringing Republicans? Everything's going to heck in a handbasket, and are you, do they need a whole, revamp of the campaign from top to bottom? And, at the time I said no, and I still believe that. The truth of the matter is we're running against an incumbent president, and we've had more presidents in the 20th century die in office than we've thrown out of office. It's not an easy thing to do to run somebody out of that office.
Okay, and no jokes there, folks.
That is an interesting...
No, I wasn't trying to...
No, I'm talking to these two over here.
No, that was interesting.
Okay.
I'm certainly not suggesting. I mean, and that's not counting Nixon, but, if you throw Nixon in there, we've actually had probably more removed than die. But so when you start looking at that, it's not an easy thing to beat an incumbent president. And other people say, I don't care who you are. If the president of the United States flies into your town and you see that big blue bird flying, you stop your car, you pull off on the side of the road, and you watch it. Because you don't watch it as a Democrat, you don't watch it as a Republican, you watch it as an American. It's a cool thing. And, so that's the power of the presidency. I do think, after the very next day after the election, I do think that the storm had an effect. I do think Chris Christie... walking hand, the one thing we always said about Barack Obama is that he could not be a bipartisan president. But that storm gave him the perfect opportunity to take away one of the major things that we actually were gaining ground on. Is his lack of bipartisanship and Mitt Romney's willingness to be bipartisan. And that was, I think that storm, and I know you all kind of jumped down my throat what I said. Chris Christie, I felt like, as a governor, you have to do what you have to do when your people are hit by a storm like that, and I really I wasn't happy that he did it, but if you're a resident of New Jersey, I'm sure you are, and so but I do think that had a major effect overall because it took away one of our major arguments, is that the guy's not bipartisan, he's not reaching across the aisle, and it gave him opportunity to be presidential in a time of need for the citizens, and he had a Republican governor help him.
Okay.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Okay, and so you're trying to say that millions of people who were undecided until the storm hit suddenly looked at these pictures of Obama and Christie on the television and totally blew out of their minds everything that happened over the last 4 years and said, "Oh, there's a pretty picture. I think I'll vote for him."
I think if you look at the 400,000 votes we lost by in the 4 swing states, that Dick Morris would look at and say, "Okay, if we had won those, we would have won." I think if those 4 states had gone our way, you probably would have seen a couple other states go our way, and then, that maybe meets that.
Well, to support your argument, Jamie, one of the exit poll questions coming out, and that MSNBC was promoting was that
Mark is really disembodied now. He's away from his mic. But just speak up a little more loudly.
The major deciding factor for them in the election was Obama's reaction to the storm. They actually had, you know that number there. And the other deciding part was it a major factor? And yes, so it's like a 60s.
For like 50 or 60% of the people, it was a major deciding factor.
Why they went? So that's to support his thesis.
Yeah, of course.
And and I don't think we're talking about millions and millions of people. I think there's several things that went.
This
wrong.
is what we want to get into.
There were several things. There's several things that went.
Yeah, because hundreds of thousands of votes. There's so much voter fraud in this election. Hundreds of thousands of votes can be explained. I mean, we've got thousands of votes just in District 18 in Florida, not counting Broward County, not counting Palm Beach County, not counting Dade County. I mean, that's just in South Florida. We didn't have the Black Panthers outside our polling places down here, but we sure did in Philadelphia. And in Pennsylvania, they had, 56 precincts?
I think we have to
59 precincts with 100% for Obama.
I don't believe that.
I think we have to look at a lot of things. You know, in 2000 there were 6 states that were separated by 24,000 votes.
In 2000,
there were 6 states separated by 24,000 votes. 18,000 votes.
6 states separated
by 24,000 votes.
24,000 votes in each state.
Total votes.
Total.
Florida 537, New Mexico 500 and something, Wisconsin was 18,000 of them,
word.
Iowa was 2,000, and the state of Washington was something like 4,000. So
is that Dave?
Yeah.
Come on in. You can sit on the floor over there.
Yeah,
That's our friend,
Come
Dave.
on in, Dave.
He's surprising us. For the
You didn't tell me you were coming today. I would have brought you a
What's up,
treat.
man? How you doing? Good to see you.
I did leave you a cookie, however. I tried to eat them all.
Just sit on the floor over there.
This is Jamie Miller. He came over from Sarasota.
Bring one of those chairs.
Oh my gosh.
Watch out for the computer. We have an open studio here. If anybody wants to come in, you can come in anytime you want. No big deal.
Is he saying no to my cookies? Oh, okay.
Easy.
He didn't say no. He said no, thank you.
Okay.
But one of our friends just came by, so we let him in, and you can come by. But the rule is, if you're here at 6 o'clock, you take us all out for dinner. So that's the rule. Okay.
I don't believe I'll be here today.
Next time.
I won't be here today, but I will make it.
Okay. So
It's good to know when I have to leave by.
I have to say, okay, I just have to say,
Why did you?
yeah. I met Dave a few weeks ago at the when we did
Losing Our Sons.
when we did Losing Our Sons. Yes, we sat next to each other during this film and the filming of the focus group, and we sat there eating Twizzlers like the whole night. Whoever would get up would bring back Twizzlers from the buffet table for the other ones, and we just sat there and yeah.
Those are my favorite.
So Dave came by the studio and brought
nice.
Twizzlers for the crew.
How nice. Thank you, Dave. It's not quite dinner at the Ritz, but that's okay. But that's okay.
You see how easy to please we are?
Yes.
Are we charming group or what?
Yes. At 4:29, 29 minutes after the hour here on WNN 1470 with a crinkling Twizzler bag in the background. You're with Tom Trento and a bunch of other people in the room here. But our expert, Jamie Miller, drove over from Sarasota about 4 hours or so.
Yeah, about 3.5.
3.5, not bad.
Not exactly what the speed limit is the whole way, but you know.
On the alley. And Jamie's an expert in political consultant.
Crinkly.
It is crinkly. That's going to fall all over the place.
No, it's not.
An expert in political consultant, and our goal right now for the rest of the show is to really dive down into the tactical and specific on the ground reasons why the Obama administration won. Number one, to understand it. Then number two, to prepare ourselves starting right now for this battle, because we don't want to do what the banana republics and all the Arab countries are doing. Fight revolutions with guns in the street. That's crazy. We do it with ballot boxes, and we just have to fight harder, be more organized, more effective, and never forsake these principles that a guy like Dave, who served in the United States Marine Corps, fought and defended for all of us in this room. So thank you, Dave, for your service. All right, now, Jamie, you before Dave came in, you're explaining the big picture of why we lost.
Right.
Pick it up.
But
from there.
we were talking about some things that went right for them.
Votes, yeah.
We were talking about the 24,000 votes in 6
yeah.
states. And the interesting thing is every state that's been close, Wisconsin's been close nearly every election except for maybe 08. Iowa is normally a very close state, Florida. So you start getting into all these states. When they're close, within less than 1%, we lose them all. We won Florida in 2000, and that's the one we can hang our hat on the one that we really won that was close. So, you mentioned fraud, and that's certainly part of it. But I think at some level we're losing too many of these states when they're close. Donna Brazile didn't run this great campaign, but they won 5 out of 6 states in 2000. They won 4 out of 4, of the close states here in 2012. So, I think the other thing that we underestimated with the Obama campaign, and I was guilty of it, because back in June, we were all thinking, okay, we're about at parity with money. By the time you figure third-party groups, the party, the campaigns, we're both going to have about $1 billion, $1 billion with a B, which is amazing. But we're going to have $1 billion with a B to spend. They're going to have $1 billion with a B to spend. And I think what we underestimated was how many hundreds of millions of dollars the Obama campaign had spent never turning off the faucet. I mean, what you just said about us starting for 2014 for the governor's race, 2016 for the next presidential race, starts right now.
Right.
And
Well, they didn't quit campaigning.
they never stopped. They never stopped registering people to vote. They never, ever stopped. And so, when you come up with, what happened in Dade County, they only increased their margin in Florida in 2 counties, Miami-Dade and Osceola. And Osceola was negligible. They went from like...
Wait. You're saying that, and I want to make sure everybody understands that, because we have people all over the place watching the show.
Sure.
Miami-Dade County is where Miami Beach is. Miami Beach is city of Miami.
Right.
Osceola County is up by, actually, Disney World is in Osceola County.
South of Orlando.
And what actually occurred in those 2 counties? There's how many counties in Florida?
67 counties.
Okay, 67.
So Obama won in 2000, to put it in perspective, in 2008, Obama won 15 counties in Florida.
15 out of 67.
15 out of 67. In 2012, he only won 13. We had 2 counties go from Obama counties to Romney counties. So,
wait a minute. In 2012, he only won 13 counties.
13, right.
So 67, that's what, 53. And Romney wins 53 counties?
Right.
You asked how did we lose?
Yeah,
54,
because he
54.
increased voter registration in the counties that he won in so that the D's outnumbered the R's.
Well, you have to, hold on. First of all, the way I'm explaining this, just to be, so people understand, I'm starting with his 2008 margin.
Right.
Right.
So Obama won by 2.8%, or about 250,000 votes. So when you hear these numbers from me, you have to realize Romney had to make up 250,000 votes. Okay. And I think that's where they needed to start. And they maybe thought they were starting at 0. They weren't. We were starting at a 250,000. We had to make up 250,000 votes.
Let everybody understand what that means. That means when everybody went to the polls on November 6th, theoretically, we were behind 250,000 minus whatever we registered in the last 4 years. Do we know what we registered in the last 4 years?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I think it's obvious that...
Not enough.
that they certainly did better. I mean, there's no question that they did better. And but he only increased the amount he won by in 2 counties. Every other county, he either kept basically the same. Like Broward County, he won by 250,000, roughly 250,000 votes in 08. Won by roughly 250,000 in 12. Oh, Hillsborough, basically the same exact numbers. But in several counties, Palm Beach, for instance, we talked about this, how we went from, basically losing by 135,000 votes to 95,000 votes. So we gained 40,000 of the 250 we needed. We gained 40,000 right here in Palm Beach. We gained.
Yay to us.
in Pinellas, another Democrat county, we gained roughly 15,000 votes. That's St. Petersburg, where the Tampa Bay Rays play baseball. In Volusia County, where Daytona Beach is, we gained 15,000. So
no, let me go to those specific areas that you're talking about. You got in Volusia County. Why was the difference over there, and what was the difference over here in Palm Beach County? Was it because of the activism on the ground, the more integration of message? What was it?
I think a lot of it has to do with the ground game in these particular areas. I mean, I really do. I mean, in Volusia, there was a major push in one of the areas for a Republican county commissioner that he did a huge ground game. Another place where we gained a lot of votes is in the coastal counties of Southwest Florida, south of Tampa. You know, okay. Bradenton, Sarasota, Punta Gorda. They got hit by Hurricane Charlie a few years ago. Fort Myers and Naples.
Were there active Tea Party groups there?
There's active Tea Party groups, but I think one of the things that happened over there more so than in the other state. This was not the case in Volusia, and I'm not sure if this is the case here, but in Southwest Florida, it seemed to be a more of a let's stick together. You know, let's not ostracize a Tea Party group. Tea Party groups kind of they never joined the Republican Party per se, but it wasn't like we were fighting. It's like, okay, if the Republican Party's having an event, the Tea Party groups are invited. You know, and so we just did. You know, and the Tea Party groups I've found don't really want to take over the Republican Party. They don't want, in my opinion. I know there's pockets in different areas and things like that of what people want, but my experience as a whole is, you know, they want their autonomy. And with the campaign finances laws different now than they were back in, let's say, '94. You know,
thanks to John McCain.
Yeah, but I think it's a positive here is because you can have the Tea Party group be separate from they don't have to incorporate within the party if they don't want to. Over on our part of the state, they have, and it's worked out great for us. And I think that's probably a model for us to look at is, you know, we all have to work together. One, the political party can't dictate to the Tea Parties, nor can the Tea Parties dictate to the political parties. It's something that, you know, we have to kind of reach some common ground. I tell people that, you know, I'm conservative in the primary and a Republican in the general. And, you know, if you know, I was a senior advisor to Newt Gingrich's campaign here in Florida. We lost. You know, Romney won. I'll go carry the banner as much as everyone else, just like everyone else here did. And so, you know, it was he wasn't my guy, but he became my guy.
Do you know anybody who actually was a Romney guy? Because I don't know anybody who was a Romney guy until after the primary season was over.
Well, and I think this is in Florida. I think this is another telling. I think
no, I'm just asking because I don't know who are those people.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
My experience, the center-left people that are fiscally conservative but center-left socially, they liked Romney. They liked him a lot. They felt he's a moderate. He's somebody we can get behind. And particularly Jewish people, friends of mine who were Jewish business people, center-left socially, but conservative fiscally.
Yeah.
They really, Romney was their guy, like from the beginning. They really liked him.
Wow.
Yeah, and particularly with a stand on Israel.
And I think you hit on a pretty good segue into one of the Achilles' heels that I see when you're looking at these numbers from '04. So it's two presidentials, '04 to '08, '08 to '12. We really haven't. You have to remember, in the primary in Florida, out of the 67 counties we talked about, Romney only won 34. Newt won 33. So, while it was a blowout from a numbers perspective, there was, Romney should have been able to look at the map and say, okay, in Duval County and these rural counties, I need to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know that they really recognize that. I think they thought, well, people are just going to come along. And the numbers just don't support that they did. And I think if you broke down the numbers in Ohio, Colorado, and Wisconsin as well, I think you're probably looking at a very similar dynamic where, people needed to be reached out to, and I really think it's kind of this is the second prong. The first prong was kind of the Miami-Dade problem. Then we have the kind of the rural problem. And then go ahead.
You have a question, Dave?
Just hashing around in my head while you
Come on
were.
up to the mic.
Come on up to the mic.
Well, watch out. You can't be driving that thing. Yeah, just speak up. You're fine.
I mean, for example, they raise a lot of money and they continually raise money. Are the efforts by the RNC right now to kick in a plan to do that? So we could raise $1 billion by the next election? You know, with this guy in there, look, you see Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the most,
Oh,
Lonesome person.
yeah, I mean, like,
yeah.
Well, it depends on whether she's standing next to Corinne Brown or not.
yeah. I mean, I compare her to the
That's a
in
good
fact, to the
answer.
dislikability to Nancy Pelosi, but yet she blows away her opponents. You know, and like, for example, Obama said what he's going to do. He wants to raise taxes, he wants to do this, he wants to do that. And people embrace that. Romney said, I'm going to cut off Parenthood, you know, Planned Parenthood. I think you heard a lot of women out there who didn't want to vote for him because of that. He said he wanted to, you know, close the borders. You heard the Spanish, you know, the Spanish vote. So I think he didn't appeal to, on many levels to the people out there who are not conservative people who want to say, hey, I don't like what he's professing. Now, if he wants to do this once he gets elected, like Obama doesn't tell the truth at all, and everybody loves him when he gets in there. And I met a fella, and I'll be very brief, that lives in my building from Chicago. And in 2007, former Marine, and he said to me, I knew him when he was a state senator. He said, don't ever believe, this is 207, don't ever believe a thing he says. When you walk away, he's going to do what he wants to do, and he doesn't care about you. So it's really, I would vote for him anyway, but the fact of the matter is, it proved to be correct. I believe he understands that word tequila to the ultimate level and practices it every day he opens his mouth. So.
Okay, that's from Dave, our visitor, asking questions.
Well,
We're an equal opportunity visitor place in here. Tom Trento at 43 minutes past the hour at TrentoVision.tv in Boca Raton, Florida. We're on the radio side. It's WNN 1470. We need all of you folks telling your friends and your neighbors to tune in every day, 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. The little application I showed somebody else yesterday or so, they go, oh, you're on iHeartRadio. I was on the business card.
oh, yeah.
Oh, and set their phone up for them. iHeartRadio, you can listen to us
Pretty cool.
3 to 6 Eastern time, anywhere there's a phone signal in the world. How's that? That's pretty cool. So today we have Jamie Miller on from Sarasota, Battle Group Inc., is it?
Battleground Group.
Battleground Group. Wait, how'd you pick that name? Battleground
Yeah, because nobody can
Group.
say it. How
Battleground
many
Group.
times did I get
Battleground.
tongue-tied on the radio this week trying to say that?
Well, it's
Battlegroundgroup.com.
Battleground Group. Well, I also have battlegroundflorida.com, but since we started doing work outside the state, we had to come up with something else.
Your
So.
picture's right there, I think.
Well,
the visitor.
It's for you.
I'm sorry, I'm shutting it right
The
off.
visitor brings his phone
I
in.
beg your pardon, I forgot to shut it off.
Okay. Battleground Group. How'd you get that name?
Just something that, it's hard to live inside this head. So every once in a while, something like that pops out. And,
See your picture? Is that your picture down there? See it?
it's still us.
Oh, well.
It's what?
It's not.
Oh, it's not on there?
Okay.
No.
Oh,
we're
it's
back.
off. Okay, we're off.
Yeah.
But Jamie Miller is here from Battleground Group, a political consultant. And if you want to speak with Jamie or any of us in here, 888-565-1470, 888-565-1470. We'll take your calls, and we're working our way through trying to get an analytical handle on the metrics of an election. And we want to, in the rest of this hour and then the next hour, we want to go into the Electoral College. We want to talk about that. This is telling you guys, if you're just getting in your car, to keep listening. We want to get into
Because
the...
who doesn't want to listen to a talk about the Electoral College
No,
on their way
this is
home
good
from work?
stuff. That's what it's all about today. We could talk about the sex scandal of Days of Our Spies, as we've been doing, but we want to do this. We'll get back to that stuff tomorrow. We want to talk about the messaging issue that Dave was referencing.
Yeah.
Whether or not the Republican Party needs to modify its message. So there's a whole bunch of things. I'm sure these guys have questions, but continue with your.
Well, I think the third thing is we needed to. When I said there's 3 things we need to do, one is, I don't believe the Republican Party had a Hispanic problem. We had an immigration problem. I mean, when you break down no matter what demographic group you look at, if you weren't, if you're even a second or third generation family here, we probably didn't get your vote. Right. I mean, that's just, the vast majority of people who have been here fewer than 3 generations, I think, we just lost miserably. And I told someone the other day, I was like, it's interesting because, there's this debate going on, and it kind of, I guess it's out in the open a little bit, but, did the Cuban population go for Romney or not? And the debate is, well, did, the Democrats say that Romney got 48%, we'll say we got 54%, and regardless, if that's where we're at, we failed miserably. And part of it, I think, is we're losing this demographic by a generation, and we're losing people who truly fled tyranny in Cuba on they're just getting older. And I kind of told someone the other day, I said, it's kind of like I was listening to my uncle in the mid '80s talking about he fought on Iwo Jima. I'm really proud of him, and he was one who came home to us, but he when he's telling these stories, I went out and got my Toyota car and listened to my Sony Walkman, and
right.
and he he never spoke of the Japanese people without using very slanderous language,
right?
And that's not the way I would ever look at the Japanese people. But until the day he died, that's the way he spoke of them.
Right.
And I think we have to kind of realize that there is this generational shift among the Cuban population, the immigration population period, that, we need to have things that, okay, this is what happened, this is why we're here. But I think for younger immigrants, we have to have a plan as Republicans to say, this is what we are going to do forward. This is why this is the common ground we all stand on. And I think we as Republicans have more to offer than Democrats, to be honest with you. I think we offer economic freedom. We offer opportunities that Democrats do
I
not.
got to stop you there. I got to stop you for a second because I was on the phone for an hour last night with a good friend, Jewish businessman who's done well, and he basically said it's over, and his argument was that the other side is voting for their pocketbook. They're
voting for free stuff.
Yeah, they live in a very immediate gratification kind of environment, and when one guy is giving them stuff, it's tough for the other guy speaking in principles.
Yeah, they don't want to hear.
Before we get into that, I just got an email that I need your expertise in interpreting. Okay, I'm going to read you the email. It just came in, sort of a flash breaking news email. It says, sale Thursday, November 15th, tomorrow, 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Patriotic jewelry, folding tables, computer, router, phones, television. I want you to explain what this email means. Boca Raton GOP Mitt Romney office sale. Can you explain what this is all about?
I'm not familiar with it, so I'm assuming that the office has memorabilia that they're selling.
I was in that office.
They're selling everything off. What does that mean? Can you put that in the bigger we lost column explanation?
I think that political memorabilia is sought after whether you win or lose, and people may want it.
Phones? You can buy a phone for $10.
I'm going to this thing.
TV.
Look at this. Is good
TV for $100.
Really?
A computer for $150.
Yeah.
I got the same email.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a loser email is what it is.
Yeah. Does it have
that's that $1 billion.
Does it have their cunning plan for winning on the computer?
No, I don't think so.
As far as that marketing and message, concept is on the messaging. We're talking about reaching out to the Latino, Hispanic community, and all this other stuff.
Yeah. What do we have that they want?
Well, the thing about it is, let's say that you gave all the Cubans, Hispanics, promised everybody amnesty, like Ronald Reagan did. Okay, where he had 40% of the vote during the first election, and then after he gave amnesty and everything that you would think that the Hispanic community is asking for, he dropped from 40% down to 36%.
Right. I don't think
the messaging. I mean, the message is wrong. I think the marketing to that group is wrong. And
I think it's a broader issue. I mean, I think that when you start looking at the different groups of people that, I think, what do they want? I think we have to stop looking at any group of people as a they.
Right.
I think we have to say, okay, what can we do to reach out to, I think.
Why can't we just define ourselves and put that message across instead of trying to figure out what everybody wants?
Let him finish.
And trying to figure out how we can squeeze out of who we really are to tell them, yeah, we're going to give you that.
Let our guest finish.
See, and I don't, listen, and I don't. I think you get at a dangerous thing because you, Tom, you mentioned, different Republicans are going to find themselves different ways. Mm-hmm. And like even within the party, we have, Tea Party Republicans, we have social conservative Republicans, we have economic Republicans, and we have, probably 7 or 10 variations of those 3 major groups. Mm-hmm. So, for us to sit here and say, oh, let's define ourselves in one particular way, what you really do is you have a leader, like a Mitt Romney, who defines himself, and we either follow him or we don't.
Right.
And, we have a leader in Rick Scott here, which is our next election we have to worry about as governor, who has defined himself as, I think, as a conservative business guy. And, we'll either, people will either follow him or he won't. The party, it's hard for the party to say, oh, this, we'll have this platform, we'll have that platform. And I guess we could let 200 or 300 people who part of the committee go vote on that, but I'm not sure that we all agree with that.
Well, yeah. Let me ask this though. Every 4 years when we have the convention, we put out the party platform. In the case of the GOP platform this year, it was 60-something pages. Isn't that a definition of who we are and what we stand for right there? That theoretically Republicans are for?
I think that, theoretically. I think theoretically.
So, couldn't we just have?
But the thing is, that thing probably is written for the most part. The presidential nominee has say over, tweaks it. But the vast majority of that's written that platform committee meets for 4 years.
Right.
So that committee meets for 4 years. They're starting to meet in January for the next 4 years. Well, the political dynamics, as we have all seen in this election, the political dynamics changed so much that it's like, okay, a superstorm hit. Now the political landscape changed with that. So, it's kind of, it's not an easy task to say, okay, we're this way or we're that way. I think the important thing the one thing Dick Morris did get right, Tom, was that, we're all a little better at post-analysis than we are pre-analysis. But, he said, if we don't, there's a group of people that they have built a coalition with that we'll have trouble winning ever again. And it's, under 30, it's all women.
Well, hold that thought, because we're going to have to break here. And in the next session, 888-565-1470, I want to hit the hot button issues. I want us to have sort of a panel discussion here and figure out what the hot issues are going to be, how the Democrats are going to approach them, how the Republicans right now vis-a-vis the traditional approach would be, and then what maybe the neo-Republican view could be.
The post-Republican
Republican. But right now I got some breaking news. Looks like Israel, at least Hamas, is in a state of war right now. They just declared open war on Israel. They are firing missiles like crazy out of Gaza into Israel. Israel is launching defensive operations. Iron Dome knocked down 17 rockets, 6 got through, landed. They're hitting houses in Israel, and Hamas has declared an open war right now against Israel.
Hold on. You mean?
And this differs from the 140 rockets that landed yesterday and the 80 missiles from last week.
Well, there's a declaration now of open war by Hamas.
This differs between Israel exists and continues this to Islam will obliterate it.
Yep.
This is
well, the solution is to go back to the 1967 Green Lines, and then everybody will be happy. That's what the solution is. But we're going to be real happy in the next hour, and we're going to come back very closely after the
40 seconds.
Who, what?
We're going to do a 40-second break.
When, right now? Oh, at the top, so we can keep going.
Yeah.
We're not doing the news or anything like that. Oh, we're here. There's not going to be any breaks, so if anybody has to leave...
There's no break?
No.
Not hour.
No. So if you have to go to the bathroom, just walk out.
No, I have to eat some of these Twizzlers.
So do I. Mike,
you got 40 seconds.
Can you put a cartoon up on the screen or something?
Here's what we do. Here's what we're gonna do. We gave you the news on Israel. Now we're gonna move into our panel discussion, the hot issues, what we think they're gonna be, and I think we need a little more analysis. I'm still not quite sure on these numbers. We want you to walk us through some of the swing state, like how could 20 or 30 precincts in Pennsylvania all have 100% of people voting for Barack Obama? Did you hear that sort of stuff?
I've heard of those rumors. I don't know that I've seen the final results of them. So be honest with you, I haven't.
It's actually 59 different districts, and I have verified them. 59 different districts in Pennsylvania, which 100% voted for Obama.
Has that ever happened?
So it's 100% turnout, or 100% of the people voted for Obama? 100%
voted for Obama.
So
yeah, 59. But also, now just to be fair, is also there was 12 precincts in other places around the country that voted 100% for Romney.
Yeah, it's a statistical anomaly for sure, right. But I'm not going to say it's not. It's a statistical impossibility. But Pennsylvania. One of the things that's interesting, I think, when we start looking at the Florida election law and everybody starts talking about this, is we we are going to have a whole group of people as the Twizzlers face their first damage.
We don't have a break. We're putting the camera on you.
Got one on here.
What's that? You want one?
No.
All right.
Okay, so it's certainly a statistical anomaly. You would think that, but the thing is, in Pennsylvania, I believe that in statewide they still use old mechanical machines, where you can go in and you can just click one button and it votes all Democrat, or one button it votes all Republican. And so using those types of machines, I would say it's more of a possibility, but at the same time, those old mechanical machines are the easiest to cheat with. I mean, they're the absolute easiest to have. You can sit there and click that, Romney button all day long and hit it, and you don't go around to see if your vote registered Romney. Unlike, the people who were looking at the touch screen and knew right away that it was, that there was the one bad machine in, I guess it was Pennsylvania, so they must have some touch screens. So, anyway, so there's those types of things that can happen. It's weird. I think we have to be cautious when we're saying fraud. I think we all know that exists. I think that, to me, the long question of fraud has always been, does it exist from a top down, or does it exist from a bottom up? And so, in our example here in St. Lucie County, do we, is it a supervisor of elections problem? And and I think we know that the supervisor of elections, and I think this is one thing that has to be addressed and I think this is real important, that has to be addressed in the next election law, is that we have to have some uniformity when we start talking about, we cannot have 67 kings and queens across the state of Florida having their own interpretation of election law.
Right.
And
that's a good point.
That's a very good point.
We cannot have, a St. Lucie County. I think that was the main point that came out of Gore versus Bush in 2000, was that you have to have some level of uniformity to meet the Constitution. So you can't have a St. Lucie County supervisor of elections say, interpret the law X, and the person in the villages determine it Y, depending on where the
I don't understand, to begin with, why is there even a discussion about which votes are going to get counted and which ones aren't? I thought all the votes are supposed to get counted.
Well, I think that's a little bit of a.
We're going to take a quick little break. We'll be back in 1 minute.
This is Health and Wealth Radio, AM 1470, WWNN Pompano Beach, and WKIS HD3, Boca Raton, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
Hi, I'm Duke Liberatore.
And I'm Dr. Jan McBaron.
We're a husband and wife team.
And together we host the #1 health talk show in the nation,
Duke and the Doctor. You can hear our show weekday mornings at 10 here on WWNN AM 1470 Health and Wealth Radio.
We'll discuss up-to-date health news, give away gifts, share in a laugh or two, and answer health questions from our callers.
So if you are ready to start feeling happy, healthy, and terrific, then tune in to Duke and the Doctor.
Weekday mornings at 10 on WWNN AM 1470.
What you want to know. What you need to know. This is South Florida's Health and Wealth Radio, AM 1470, WNN.
I'd like to thank Dave. I'd like to thank Dave for the Twizzlers. they are delicious. We got camera. We took a 1-minute break, and we jammed about 100 Twizzlers down our throats here. Health food at the Health and Wealth Radio in Boca. This is, this station has health and wealth stuff. People talking about these vitamins and all this. We're eating candy on the show, okay?
What's them candy little kids?
Yeah, so...
I think we have more fun on our show than any radio show ever had in the history of radio. What do you think?
But we educate...
I've had more fun.
No!
Is that what you said?
No, I said we have more fun
Oh.
at this radio show than
No, I said I've had more fun here.
Yes.
And the other radio shows I've been on.
All right.
Sorry, I didn't finish my thought.
You didn't finish that thought. I've had more fun. Well, of course you have.
But we educate people. That's the important thing. They don't get away without learning something. And
okay, you're going to get an email for saying that.
I know. But we're learning quite a bit with Jamie Miller from Battleground Group. Got it right? BattlegroundGroup.com. Go there right now. Are you, you're not a nonprofit or anything like that?
Oh, God, no.
All right, why don't you... Smart guy. Why don't you give out for the top of the hour, 5 o'clock, the contact information. We've got new viewers and listeners now, so take 30 seconds. Tell them who you are, how they can get in touch with you, and why they should spend money with you.
You can reach me any number of ways. You can reach me on Twitter at RepJam, REPJAM, probably one of the easiest ways, or you can reach me at repjam@gmail.com is my email that I carry around with me all the time. Or you can email me through battlegroundgroup.com.
And why would somebody want to contact you?
Well, they'd want to contact me if you're thinking about running for office, or if you're thinking, I've worked with people and organizations to build, public relations on corporate side, build their brand in the community. But most of my work is with actual candidates or maybe nonprofits or people who are having political issues. So you might have a group that's having something before the county commission. You want to know how to tackle that, and it's, I'm not a registered lobbyist, but that's, I do help people with their messaging when they are trying to do, get things accomplished through those types of organizations. So.
Okay, why don't you finish your thought that we had?
I was responding to CJ. She's like, every vote should be counted, and I think we need to make one very clear difference between a ballot and a vote. A ballot is a piece of paper that has marks on it. A vote is a ballot that's legally cast, and I think that's a complete different. So a ballot doesn't become a vote unless it's legally cast. And so when you have provisional ballots, people come from other states. Many other states, you can go in and register to vote the same day. I think that's ludicrous. Mm-hmm. But you can go in and register, and that's one of the easiest ways for fraud is you're already on the rolls over here.
Right.
So you go vote. Well, now you have a new electric bill, so you go in and register and vote over here, so you get multiple votes.
Right.
For instance, my son moved to Colorado in August. He's on the permanent absentee ballot list. I still have his absentee ballot at the house because I never wanted to have anyone suggest that he voted twice, both in Colorado and Florida. And yet I didn't take that ballot back because I don't trust my own Republican supervisor of elections enough to say, here's a ballot that some worker can just open up and vote.
Wow, yeah.
So I just kept the ballot. at home. It's still sitting there sealed, you know, and
If you wanted to, you could have filled that out.
voted
Yeah.
it easily. Voted it. He would have voted in Colorado and in Florida.
Like
Absolutely.
we had a lady call in earlier in the week whose mother passed away 6 years ago, and she's getting absentee ballots in the mail for her mother still.
Right.
And she has been every cycle she calls
I had
the
a
supervisor of elections in Broward County and says,
Our mother's
I
dead.
sent you the death certificate, I sent you everything. Take my mother's name off the rolls, and they don't do it.
Well, there's some, you know, this is one of the bigger problems is you have a number of people, and we're talking, and we started the conversation before the top of the hour, that about, you know, is this a global problem? Was Barack Obama for America
Right.
telling people to do this, or is this people taking it on their own and committing some level of fraud, or a
Right.
supervisor of elections? You know, for instance, there's no way you can convince me that in Sarasota, where 50% of the people voted before Election Day, the lines were 45 minutes long. That's as long as the lines ever got in Sarasota, Florida. And you cannot convince me that the lines in Miami-Dade were 6 hours long for any other reason than either fraud, which I think is a possibility, or you had a Democrat supervisor of elections who decided they were not going to put up enough machines, so they made their people work to create this outrage against the governor and against early voting and against everything else, so that more people would show up to vote, because by gosh,
Angry.
we're not going to
Yep.
take this anymore. It's the Republicans trying to shove this down our throat, and it was a dirty trick by a Democrat supervisor of elections. Everywhere there were long lines, and this is what I've spoken to my legislator about. I hope you talk to your legislator about it. Everywhere we need to have someone look into, a bipartisan commission, if you will, the length of lines in each county and why those lines existed, because there were there were long lines everywhere. A long line everywhere was about an hour and a half. When you start looking in southeast Florida, where Democrats are the supervisor of elections, and there's this level of somewhat maybe fraud, but certainly Democrats trying to promote their agenda and promote anti-Rick Scott and everything else, that's when you have to say, okay, there's not a problem. This was not a Rick Scott problem. This was not an early voting problem. This was not an absentee ballot problem. This was a Democrat failure of their own constituents to try to come up with this anger to promote more people to show up to the polls to vote. And it worked.
I think they ought to stop early voting.
Well, before you do that, I bet you there was a phone campaign telling people, do you know what they're doing? They're making us
without
stand
question.
outside.
Right.
Yeah.
And that motivated people to get out. Now, correct
Yeah.
me if I'm wrong, Jamie. Aren't we broken down to precincts, about 1,000 people per precinct?
That is determined by your local county supervisor of elections. So those precincts can be anywhere from, 50 people to 6,000. But normally you have a certain number of machines. You would think there would be a certain number of machines for a certain number of people who have not voted yet. And, so I think what you saw here was a failure. I think they might, I hope that this is a double-edged sword on them. And, they won it on Election Day, but better be careful what you wish for, because I think what you have is a complete failure. The St. Lucie County Supervisor of Elections, Miami-Dade, I think are the two that stand out. Believe it or not, Hendry County has a horrible Supervisor of Elections that does little things like you have to put races in a certain order. Well, you might in one precinct have this person at the bottom of the page, this race at the bottom of the page, and in the next precinct they have it at the top. I think we pretty much fixed that through state law, but that's one of the older tricks. That was fixed, I think, in 04 or 06.
As late as that.
As late as that. So you're talking about, we just got roving poll watchers into state law. We've had a Republican governor, but these supervisors of elections, they band together. They all say there's no fraud in their county because they're elected officials. And if there is fraud in their county, it's because they're not stopping it, which means they have failed and should be voted out of office.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, at 10 minutes after 5 o'clock, you're here with Tom Trento, TrentoVision.tv. We're on WNN 1470 on the radio side. We got a full house in here. Everyone, our special guest is Jamie Miller, BattlegroundGroup.com out of Sarasota, walking us through the explanation of the anomalies, the the disparities in the vote. And in a minute, we're going to shift to the messaging, whether or not the Republican Party needs to change its messaging. But as we always do, we put together a little overview for our 3-act play. The name of our 3-act play, 3 hours. We're in the last of the 3 hours. The name of all 3 is Figures Don't Lie, but Liars Figure. And Democrats, too. Okay? You like that? And Democrats, too. We found that most voter fraud around the United States has been Democrat-infused, Democrat-initiated.
Yeah.
But our subhead for this hour is it time to change our message? Si hablo español. Si hablo es women who want abortions. Si hablo es bums who want bomophones. Do we just change our message to meet the demographic? And we got a few little videos we're going to play for you too. On the video side, you can watch it. On the radio side, you can hear these videos. You can cue them up, Mike. We're going to play them in a minute. But help us with the gross numbers. If I remember correctly, 110 million or so in 2008. Barack Obama got 60 million, was it? Mm-hmm. And McCain, no, I think it was Obama got 62 million or so. McCain, like 60 million. And no, I don't remember 2008. This cycle right now, McCain got in 2008 60 million votes. Romney in 2012 got 57 million votes. Let's start with that. From what we understand, the Republicans registered 5 million people over the 4 years in the United States. So they got 60 million votes in 2008. They added 5, total of 65 million. Romney gets 57 million Republican votes. That's 7 million less than he started with. How'd that happen?
Obama got 10 million less.
And Obama got 10 million less, but the Republicans, there were signs everywhere, Romney signs and excitement and movement and motivation and all of that.
I think I hate to keep coming back to these Florida numbers. It's obviously what I know best, but I think that in Florida you can look at the failures and successes of both campaigns. For instance, Obama, like we said, Obama lost 40,000 votes in Palm Beach County as far as margin of victory, and in Pinellas, he lost margin of victory. But in some of their strongest counties, Orange, Osceola, Orange and Osceola, and some of those counties that Obama won, he had almost the exact same. Broward, he had the exact same number of margin of victory. So there wasn't this huge outpouring for Obama. That's why everyone says, "Oh, he didn't have a mandate." Part of the problem is Romney failed, to increase his margin over 08. In Florida, it's indicative in 32 what I'm calling rural counties, but some of them are big counties. Polk County, which is Lakeland, which is along the I-4 corridor, no increase in margin. That's right between Tampa and Orlando. You look at Santa Rosa County out in northwest Florida, Escambia County out in northwest Florida. You had really Okaloosa, you had a small increase of 4,000, went from 43,000 to 46,000 in a win. So you really have like a 3,000 something plus addition, which really isn't enough in a county like Okaloosa. When you think of, we got 68, 69% of the vote, and everyone's like, oh, we got this huge margin of victory in Okaloosa. Well, when you compare it to 08 or even 04, we really didn't, for instance, in 04 in Okaloosa, we won by 50,000 votes. So we really didn't, only won by 46 between 04, so we dropped 4,000 between 04 and 12.
Why? What is the reason for that?
I actually have a interesting topic I heard where there was absolutely no marketing or anything whatsoever as far as in the states, which were like in Texas and California, all which were decided way before the fact. There was no internet marketing campaign. There was nothing. Is actually Romney picked up for the message, just pure message alone, increased in his numbers. It doesn't make a difference in electoral college, but just number-wise, it increased. So the comparison, if you're doing apples to apples, had to be something with the marketing that was different between the swing states that actually increased the numbers or decreased the numbers here in Florida in the different counties. So the messaging the messaging was what the problem was. The actual message actually worked where there was no advertising whatsoever or infrastructure.
Well, and I think the interesting thing here is the numbers in these 32 counties really have not moved from 04 to 08 to 12. They're virtually the exact same. So and really the difference between 2000 and 2004 was George W. never quit campaigning. He had outreach in rural counties. He had Baptist outreach. He had agriculture outreach. He had, a lot of these, they never stopped campaigning. They kept registering voters in strong areas where they knew they were strong. Obama basically took the George W. re-election campaign and applied it to their numbers, and you saw a similar result. I mean, that was 04 was a closer election than people really give it credit, because we had this big electoral victory, but those states were still several states were really, really tight.
We spent here, Trento Vision and our folks, we spent a lot of time in two demographic groups, actually three. It's a big Jewish community here. There's 500,000 Jews in southeast Florida. So, our message was support for Israel, and we pounded the liberal Jewish mindset that wasn't Zionistic, right? So we did a lot of work on that. We also reached out for the veterans, 1.6 million veterans in the state. In 08, 700,000 voted for Obama. We just needed, because we knew the 200,000 number, we just needed, 50, 100,000 vets to come on over. And then we did the analysis for the Christian community, the evangelical community, at least 1 million evangelicals that don't vote. So we reached out to them. Can you speak to at least the veterans and the evangelical community, their turnout in the state so far?
Well, I think you're looking at, I think what you're looking at and what I've read, I haven't seen it applied to the state, but I've heard these numbers nationally, is that the evangelical community was 23% of the vote, or roughly 23% of the vote in 08. It was 23% of the vote in 12. So, whatever happened, we failed. People are like, oh, that was a victory. They showed up. Well, maybe they should have showed up at 25%, 24%.
Exactly.
So I think that's, part of what we saw. I think you're looking at, a lot of agriculture-based communities that did not feel enthused. That tends to be, regardless of the state, tends to be more of a free-thinking, not Republican, not Democrat, I'm going to vote for the man kind of group of people. And, and neither one of these men inspired them to go vote.
But you wouldn't
over
think,
a greater than 08.
You wouldn't think a guy plowing the field, I'm going to vote for the man, I'm going to vote for the black guy from Chicago. You wouldn't think that would even be in their
I don't think but I don't think that the level of hate exists in that community that people try to stereotype it with. So I don't think that.
I'm going to vote for the socialist from Chicago. How about that?
I don't think they were, at the end of the day, I don't think they were motivated to a greater degree than they were in 08 at least. I don't think numbers showed that they were motivated by any greater degree than 08 to vote against Obama. So
that's amazing.
Well,
$1 billion, man.
Well, one of the big demographics I know that we shifted down here was the Jewish vote. It was 80-20 4 years ago, and it was now 69-31.
And that surely showed in the numbers.
And showed in so that was and we really pounded the Jewish community. And even like Ari Fleischer was saying the other day,
the RJC did a tremendous.
A lot of people did it. Not just us, but I'm just saying. But it was a combined community effort to really stress the importance of Israel,
move the
needle. And so,
go ahead.
But I think we need to repeat those type of efforts.
That's exactly right. Well, we talked about what went wrong. I think the immigration problem, the rural problem, which you could probably include some level of evangelical in with the rural problem, and then replicate the positive things that happened. So when you look at these numbers throughout the state, the whole thing's not, people call me all the time and say, oh, well, we should have a top-down cleaning out of the party. I really don't know that the numbers show that. We were running against an incumbent president, really hard to beat an incumbent president. We came within 400,000 votes of winning the 4 states we needed to win. And so you say, oh, was this a fatally flawed candidate? He could have been, and it could have been a fatally flawed campaign. But when you're looking at it, it really, they did better than we did. They got their vote out better than we did. But I don't know that we had a fatally flawed candidate nor a fatally flawed campaign. We got beat.
I think the elite media played a large part.
Yeah.
I think
not getting the message out, Romney's message out, and not covering what he was saying and what Obama was doing.
Well,
Libya, just a recent thing, but other things. Holder, the Black Panther situation. He did nothing about that. Didn't press for it. That was one thing. And other things that Obama should have acted on, he didn't. The press never made an issue out of it. If there was Bush, a Republican candidate, it would have been front page fodder.
Yeah,
and the momentum clearly stopped. I think it stopped with the Candy Crowley debate. Candy Crowley said coming into that debate she was going to be part of the story. She darn sure was. And, and she lied about it. Obama lied. I mean, she bailed Obama out during that debate no fewer than 4 times, probably closer to 6. She had the big bailout when Romney was pushing on Benghazi. He clearly took a body blow if you rewatch that entire debate and the tape. I mean, he went from being aggressive and on his toes to just kind of rope-a-dope in the corner like what the heck just happened.
Right.
And that was kind of, I don't know if that was a failure of his debate team or for them not to realize the level that Candy Crowley wanted to be a part of that debate and be part of the story. But that was clearly, I think, the moment in time that the Romney trend up stopped, and then I think it started with the Romney trend down with the storm.
And,
well, you're
and we're so
I
close.
think it was the third debate because
Yes.
he blew it at the third debate and made it all about economics. And here's my 5-point plan, and he had the opportunity to hit back on Benghazi, and instead of going for it, he squished out.
And he also said, "I agree with you" 3 times. And he could have said,
that was ridiculous.
And
that
he
was
could have said,
ridiculous.
Mr. President, you have a lot of decisions. It's not easy. Your job's not easy. And you made a great decision on Osama. But all your other decisions have been poor, which is bringing this country down to a level that we never have felt before.
The first rule of debating is you
never say I agree.
not unless you're setting them up for a
and I think they overestimated. I think they overestimated their trend. If you're looking at numbers, you see this trend, and the first debate might be the first poll may be an anomaly. The second one, by the time you have a third one, and you start seeing a trend, it may have only been a half a point per. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. You only have a half a point per, thing that we're moving up, but it's a clear trend of moving up. And so when you start looking at that, you're like, oh, we're on a trend. This is, we're going to keep going. Right. So, to second guess their debate strategy of play and prevent defense there, I'm not going to do because I'm not privy to their internal numbers. And if I was there, maybe I would have told them the same thing. I'm more of a go-get-'em kind of guy, and whatever got you here is what's going to keep you here. But as a campaign professional from outside the campaign, and I looked at, number one, what I said in the earlier hour, that budgeting is 80% of a campaign. I thought they were real smart from a tactical standpoint in July when Obama outspent them about $30 million to $8 million in July to try to bury him. And he showed a lot of discipline by not answering in July and keeping his bullets till the end so he could try to win these close states. And that takes an incredible amount of discipline. It takes an incredible amount of discipline from everyone at the top level of the campaign. So,
I would like to ask you a question on this trend that I keep seeing from Republicans and the trend I keep seeing from the Democrats. The Republicans keep going with this old adage of TV time, buying more TV ads, TV ads, TV ads, TV ads. And the Democrats have gone to a completely different paradigm. And do you see the effectiveness of TV ads anymore, especially with the advent of the DVR and everything? Do you see them become a less and less?
I think that there's no question that visual and television advertising is still king. I think it comes back to that you have to probably have a slight change in that budget. Where I would try to, if I can, anytime I can, I'll spend 80% of a budget on television. That might need to change to about 70%. And that other 10% might need to go towards people paying people to go door to door, and just hiring employees and getting the job done. And we could sit here and work with those numbers, whether it should be 68% or 76% or whatever. But I think you're right. But I do think that
I'm going to completely disagree with you on this one. I just see that the TV ad time being a complete monumental waste of money, bang for your buck mentality, especially with all the other avenues and all the other strategies that can be put out there as far as on the ground.
I will agree with you. The larger the campaign, the more motivated the voter towards the campaign, that the more effective some of these other strategies can be. But I think these numbers will show that for whatever reason, now you can get back to messaging, because people heard the message. These 5-8 million people, whatever the number is, they didn't have a chance not to hear the message. So what was wrong with the message that they did not show up to vote? I mean, and that's I think a lot of it is, when I was running Newt's campaign for Florida, or a senior advisor, I said, we lost 34 out of the 67 counties. We won 33. So, and in those 33 counties, and in some of them that we lost, Romney's strategy, a strategy in South Carolina, a strategy in Iowa, a strategy in New Hampshire, was to suppress Republican votes. And I'm not saying through illegal means, I just mean through television. Mm-hmm. Let's make the environment so negative that people say, what the heck? And I question back from, this is the one thing that I'll carry through from January on to today and probably forever, is I always questioned having a nominee that was going to lead us to victory in November, whose way to victory in the primary was to suppress the Republican vote. And I think that's clearly what we saw, was that we had millions of Republicans who decided not to show up for Mitt Romney. And I think he started that with an atmosphere during the primaries. And I don't know that, and it's hard. It's not an easy thing to run through a very negative primary, switch gears, and people are like, oh, he's running to the left, he's running to the right. So you face all these different dynamics. The difference is the candidate doesn't necessarily change, the electorate changes. And so I always tell people, my job, as I sit down with candidates and say, okay, you want to hire me, my job is not to tell you what to believe as a candidate. My job is to take what you believe and package it in a way that people want to hear it. And you might call that spin or call me a horrible person for doing it, but you might believe something that people just plain and simple don't care about hearing. And I think that's part of campaign. When we start talking about should the Republicans change their message, I don't think we should change our ideology. I think we have to stop some of this chest thumping on things that quite clearly, certainly people under the age of 50 and certainly under the age of 30 could care less about, and I think abortion's one of them. I'm not saying we should become a pro-choice party. I just don't think that people, certainly under the age of 30, men or women, we're never going to get another voter, hardly, under the age of 30, pounding our chest about abortion. And I'll say, I apply it to prohibition, apply it to Social Security as well. Once Americans see something as a right, you're not going to take it from us. You're not going to take our guns from us. You're not going to take alcohol from us. You're not going to take Social Security from us. You're not going to take abortion from us. And I think that's a hard or icy cold bucket of water that I think a lot of people may not enjoy hearing, but I think if you're just looking at it from a numerical standpoint, that's, I think, what the numbers showed us here. I think that Planned Parenthood commercial that Obama ran, like, oh, well, Planned Parenthood, and, Mitt Romney just came so nonchalant, like, oh, that's going to get rid of that. And I think a lot of women looked at that and said, at the end of the day, I'm going to go, I may not like Obama, I'm going to go better the devil I know. And I think that's what a lot of people decided. Let's go look at some devils right now. We're going to take a look at some of the people that we're just referencing in terms of the messaging. And we're at the bottom of the hour. It's 5:30 on the East Coast. This is Tom Trento on TrentoVision.tv. Thank you for joining with us. Our special guest is Jamie Miller, Battleground Group from Sarasota, Florida. And we're taking a fascinating journey through the election numbers, both on a national and statewide level. And we've decided that we're going to take a look at the messaging, whether or not the Republican Party needs to modify the messaging, and this abortion issue is one of the elements that many are saying needs messaging.
On the radio side, it's WNN 1470. Our first video is of, which one is this?
This is the
Bleeped one? Okay, this is, I believe it's in Chicago or New York, someplace. Somebody just walked up to them on election night. There are a bunch of 20-somethings, and the gentleman starts asking questions. Everything's bleeped out, right? Yeah. There's some bad words in there, but we bleeped them out. We bleeped them out, Blake. They're bleeped out. And listen carefully. You can hear a lot of background noise, all of that for those of you, for everybody listening. And watching, you'll see it. So here we go. Let's run with this. Socialism! All right.
You guys voted Obama? Of course Obama! Why? Because it's f***ing great what health Obama! Abortion? Obama! Alright, I need one person. They don't think it is helping. Let's do this guy. They don't think it is helping what it do. You know, but
Zach, too drunk. I'll tell you what's Obama's up with.
What's that?
Obama phones. Everyone's getting a f***ing Obama phone, and we're going to town with these phones. I swear to God. Ask Obama when he comes back to D.C. We're getting Obama phones. Obama phones. Obama phones.
And you voted for Obama, guys?
Obviously, Obama.
Why'd you vote for Obama?
Because I don't want to be a second-class citizen.
Why would you be second class?
Because I'm gay, and Romney wants the Constitution to write me out of America.
So it's the end of the world as we know it. You know, Jamie, work your magic with those nitwits. We're doomed, man.
Well, I'll go with what I heard a pretty famous politician in Florida say when he got in bar fights and lost the U.S. Senate race on Tuesday. When I was young and stupid, I was young and stupid, and I think that's what you saw there in the video, a lot of young and stupid. So, you know,
I see him being old and stupid too. I mean, in that same mentality, because you know.
Well, then finish his thought.
No, I'm good. Okay, go ahead.
No, I see him being old and stupid too, and is that their key issues, you know, are antithetic to, you know, the message of conservatives, to people who, you know, think that, you know, America is built upon individualism, is built on self-reliance, is built on, you know, that I think that's a more winning message in the long run for us than that message, even on a light scale.
What is that? I want to figure out what that message was. What were they saying?
They were saying that they're pro-abortion, pro-gay rights, pro-free stuff in the form of Obama phones and whatever else they can get their hands on. That was the message.
Marx was
but
in there.
But I want to say something to what Mark just said, if I could, which is, yeah, they're going to be old and stupid, and I'll tell you why. Because they're functionally illiterate to begin with when they come out of high school and most colleges in Florida. They lack critical thinking skills, and this is not something you pick up on the fly. You turn 40 one day and all of a sudden you realize, gee, I need to learn the form of rhetoric. Okay? That doesn't happen. So there really is no boost to get them forward in life.
Well, for devil's advocate, and not that I take this position with this group of folks, but the other thing I think that if we're talking about rebuilding our party from here or growing our party from here, one of the things, a couple of the things I heard in there is that I feel included in the Democrat Party and I don't feel included in the Republican Party. And I think when you start talking about gay people, and we have immigrants. There's all these groups that large groups of people within the Republican Party are against. And I'm not saying we should be the pro-gay party. I don't believe that we should, but we're not going to be the party of we need to let people feel included in our party. We should not, just like we shouldn't ostracize Christian conservatives or Tea Party conservatives or socioeconomic conservatives. Those folks feel included in our party. So should gay conservatives. So should, but the problem is they believe their gayness. We're so anti-gay that the things that we can make on common ground.
All right, let me
disagree with us.
No. I'm going to have to.
Fast,
I'm going to make it fast. Okay. With the functional illiteracy, they never learned what this country was about. They don't know history. They don't love this country. They don't understand this country. They don't learn it in school. And so identity politics has taken over because there is no us as Americans. There's us as gays, us as women, us as blacks, us as immigrants. And so there's no one to tie it all together. That's what the problem is.
Let's try a little experiment. I
don't disagree with you.
We run the Republican Party, okay? And we just wave the magic wand. We are going to be the party of the gays. It's going to be the gay party, the Republic Gay Party, okay? What would we do that could appeal to the gay community and make them go, oh my God, I'm leaving the Democrat Party and I'm going to become a Republican?
I got it.
Just quick things, no big
speeches.
All right,
we are anti-radical Islamists because they want to kill gays, hang gays, and put them to death. Whereas the Democrat Party is pro-Islamic party.
Not a negative reason.
That's positive to me. You don't want to be killed.
We're that right now.
Parades.
Okay.
No, we're not that now because we're afraid to mention the word Islam or Islamic radicalism in the Republican Party.
That's not going to resonate with them. We want a positive thing.
Parades.
Okay, we like parades, but what's the most obvious thing?
Gay marriage.
Yeah, we have our plank in our platform, and we say we are now for a federal constitutional amendment to allow gay marriages in all 50 states.
I think we can be more realistic than even
gay
marriage.
Watch where I'm going. Let's say we did that, okay? And we gave them exactly what they want on gay marriage. What's the next thing they would want in the gayness of the world of gays? What would be the next thing?
I'm following you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I know a lot of gay friends I got, but I don't know too much.
It's going to have to be like gay adoption rights.
Gay adoption rights.
All right, we give them gay adoption
gay
rights. We give them gay money. We make a gay fund.
We make a
gay curriculum into schools.
Yeah.
Okay, we give them all of
put
that.
Put a famous gay person on the $1 bill.
National Gay Day.
The $3 bill. We put
$3
a gay person on the $3 bill.
Gay people would say, "Who says we don't?"
We mandate Santa Claus is now gay.
No, we come out with a $3 bill.
The Easter
and
Bunny.
we
The Easter Bunny.
Sure.
Right, okay.
So
we do everything that they want. Is your point?
They got it. They got everything.
Yeah.
Now, you think they're going to leave the Democrat Party, or is the Democrat Party going to go, God, we'll do the same thing?
I don't know. I think there's an opportunity to have more people come to us on those common ground issues. I mean, on gay marriage, to me, marriage is at the end of the day, marriage is a document we file at a courthouse. We then go to a church and present ourselves as married to our friends and family through a religious ceremony. So we can't. I'm not saying we should be pro-gay marriage. I'm saying that I see everybody kind of point their finger at me here, but I'm not saying we should be pro-gay marriage. But what's wrong? So many of my friends who are gay have been partners for 10, 20, 30 years, and so it becomes a financial arrangement as much as anything else.
In our little experiment here, a little political experiment, we already gave them all that.
Yeah,
from a medical standpoint, let's say Obama has death panels. Somebody's parent comes in.
Let's not say he has them. He has them.
Okay, so parents come in and take over and just make that decision versus a gay partner who's been someone's partner for 30 years. I think that's a real issue in the gay community. I think that's an honest concern
Well,
hang on.
No, we're getting bogged down.
No, we're not getting bogged down.
No.
Yeah.
Hang on.
No.
I'm going somewhere with this.
Well, go already.
It's I got to deal with you guys. It's a political experiment.
Yeah.
We gave you all of that. Anything
we
gay
gave you whatever
the
you
Republicans have.
Yeah.
Now they got it. What's going to be the response of the opposition? And is that sufficient to pull the gay community over, or are we spinning our wheels doing that?
Yeah.
There's only one of those three options. What's going to be the Democrat response?
I think you're exactly right. The Democrats responding kind of say, "Oh, the Republicans are finally reasonable," blah blah blah. I think what we do is we take an issue away from them so we can then talk about what's meaningful to people who are gay, which is vast majority economic issues where we win.
All right, let me sketch the thing out. If we give every one of these issues that was articulated in that free stuff, Marx, gay stuff, abortion, if we give them fait accompli, everything they want, then we basically become the Democrat Party. What's the distinctive between the Democrat Party and the Republican Party if we now do everything that the other party does?
That is a good point. The the point is we don't have to. I don't think we have to do those things. I think what we have to be is reasonable when it comes to immigration. I think we have to be reasonable when it comes to gay rights. I think we have to be reasonable when it comes to abortion rights, because we're not. If you've asked me on here to talk about how to win elections.
Yeah.
Right.
We're gonna have a hard time winning elections on those three issues alone if we don't have some sort of no longer a pitchfork and torch mentality, and we don't let people feel included. Because what people who disagree with us, they disagree with us because they don't feel like there's any type of common ground with Republicans, any. And so they're like, there was no reason for us to lose this election. None. And, I mean, we had the worst president under the worst economic times, under the best scenario on money, everything you go down the thing. We had every reason to win this election, and we still lost.
And you bring up a good point, is that, but you're going after the strategy of switching them, as far as changing them of who they are and reaching out to.
No,
he's saying we change.
That's what I'm saying. Of us reaching out and changing either us or them as far as that. Instead of, which is another strategy, which would be to turn out more of us. I mean,
what about that?
Now we turn out more of us. Well, first,
I think the first hour I was here, I came up with three strategies.
No.
And I've included all of them.
I'm not here to put you on a spot or argue. This is an intellectual debate. Right. This is not attack.
Also, all the stuff.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is, like, we look at the Ronald Reagan out in California, when he actually gave them every amnesty vote to a specific group of people who were in the issue of amnesty or not amnesty. Gave them the entire everything that they completely wanted, and yet his numbers went down. Now, did it turn out? Now, doing that, did he turn out less of his core? Because there's a trade-off. Once you give something to this base, you lose something from your base as a turnout.
Right.
And as much as people weren't turned out, for example, the big thing that you kept stressing was there was no movement or increase in movement in the turnout on our side.
People, right.
Now, if we turned out at least 10% more of our side, we would have swept the entire country.
Right.
And that's what we were doing. Well, let me finish. What we were doing down here was hammering our values, our core constituency, our core ideas, and as numbers that you saw, increased in a very pro-Obama election down here, which is antithetic what's happening across the country. I think that is a key to success, is when you focus the message on what your beliefs are, on what your values are, and say, now make a choice.
Right. I don't think my point by saying any of those things is that I believe we're dying on swords that don't exist anymore. In the vast majority of Americans' mindset, abortion no longer exists, as we're the only ones fighting the battle.
I'm not pro or anti-abortion or anything.
No, it doesn't matter.
But what I'm saying, as far as that issue is concerned, it seems like...
All I'm saying is we're dying on swords that no one cares about. Okay, so we lost women. We lost people under the age of 30 over trying to dismantle Planned Parenthood. And There's too many. We're not going to. Even if you put in the U.S. Supreme Court justices, there's not a bone in my body that believes a new U.S. Supreme Court would have overturned Roe versus Wade. No, I just don't believe that, because a full generation of people, of Americans, see abortion as a right. And I'm not saying that makes abortion correct. I'm not saying that makes anything other than, we could have lost this election over fighting over Planned Parenthood when we should have won it on so many other different issues.
Let me tell you about a letter that, or an article, Andy McCarthy. Do you know Andy McCarthy?
No, I don't think so.
Andy McCarthy is the retired prosecutor from the Southern District of New York, and he was involved in a 1993 World Trade Center bombing. He was the prosecutor that put the blind sheikh, Omar Abdul Rahman.
Al-Moody, right?
What's that?
No, it wasn't Al-Moody, I'm sorry.
No, Omar Abdul Rahman is his name. He's in prison in North Carolina serving life. He's the one that the president of Egypt, Mohamed Morsi, wants released.
And also co-author of the book Sharia, The Threat to America, along with Tom Trento.
Yeah, but no, Andy's a phenomenal thinker, writer. And he wrote this article today basically asking, saying, is it time to move on from the GOP? So some of the arguments we're hearing, we're bringing out here, obviously, for discussion. But he concludes, the concluding paragraph, he basically says the Republican establishment is content with more government, more debt, more entanglement with our enemies. When called on it, they tell us they're powerless to stem the tide, but the problem is a lack of will and a lack of urgency, not the lack of power. It is time to find a new vehicle to lead the cause of limited, fiscally responsible constitutional government. The Republicans are telling us they're unwilling to be that vehicle. If that is the case, it is time to move on. This is going all over the country right now.
Well, and I agree. I agree with the point that we have as. I agree with the point that. Finish that last sentence. I lost my thought.
The Republicans have the party, but not the will. They have the power because they control the purse book of Obama, but they don't have the will to stand and fight him.
If you look at the election, I think one thing that happened was people who did not vote. This group, there's millions and millions of people who did not vote and we felt should have voted for us, looked at the Republican Party, and they really didn't see a difference. They didn't see, at the end of the day, it's like, oh, Republicans say, oh, we want you out of our life. We want government out of our life. Well, the Democrats are at least honest and they say, oh, we want government in our life as much as we can get into your life. Republicans sit there and say they're kind of a little, we want government out of our life, and I'm a little bit more libertarian, as you can tell, when it comes to a lot of these issues. We want government out of our life, except for when it comes to, whatever, when it comes to your body or it comes to your bedroom or it comes to whatever issue, however they're able to define it. And so I think a good group of people look at that and say, I really don't want to vote Democrat because they're darn sure want government in my life, but I really don't trust the Republicans not to be in my life because they are. And so, and they're in my life in ways that I don't think government should be at all.
This is a fascinating point, because if a group of people that didn't vote, that could have made the difference, didn't vote because they don't see a distinction exist, and a group of people that were yelling their heads off exist that did make the difference, we're at this fork in the road. Which do we articulate to the group that thinks that we're completely the same? And we got two groups of people, two universes of voters. The Republicans and the Democrats are exactly alike. I'm not going. This side over here, the kids, they're so different, we got to vote for Obama. Which direction do we go? Maybe what you said is we articulate specific principles that resonate with people that are.
I think what you saw in Palm Beach, when you look at these numbers, you look at Palm Beach, Pinellas, we reached the economic voters. I think that's what I don't have any empirical data to prove that.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on the economic. We reached the Jewish voters. We reached the conservative voters. We reached the other voters, which increased.
What I'm saying is I haven't seen data to say why we reached them or what motivated them to come to our side. Right. So I haven't seen that data.
That's going to be coming out? Somebody's going to get that?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, people are going to put it together and mix it up. And, you know, one of the things I do is grab data from everywhere and try to take it, understand the source.
Right.
You know, where the numbers are coming from, how they could have moved them, and try to come up with something that's a reasonable explanation for them. Right. And I think that I'm fairly good at that. But I believe
but
that
I believe
what you in Volusia County, you're not talking about a super conservative county up in Daytona Beach. You know, Palm Beach is not seen as a super conservative county. Pinellas is darn sure not seen as a conservative county. And so, you know, when you see those are Democrat counties, but we moved numbers a great deal. My initial thought is we move those numbers on economic principles, not social principles. And, you know, and I think we lost in other places because we're dying on swords that we're the only ones who care about them. We're the only ones carrying those swords anymore. You know, I'm a mid-40s person. I'm a pro. I don't mind telling people I'm a pro-life person. I'm a pro-life person for very personal reasons. I've sat down with people who are pro-choice, and they're very pro-choice for very personal reasons. I don't know that my reasons are more important than theirs. I don't know that I'm more right than they are. But you know, I don't. That's where I'm at. But when you go back to my original theory of once Americans see anything as a right for a generation, you're not going. I mean, we couldn't get rid of alcohol. I mean,
it becomes an entitlement.
Not even an entitlement, but a right. The people see it as like, oh, I have a right to a drink. I have a, you know.
Let me read
blah, blah, blah.
This.
I mean, we changed the voting age in this country from most places being 21 to 18 because we were drafting kids.
Right.
You know. And you know we were maybe we weren't going to give them the right to drink then, but by gosh, if we were going to send you to war, you have the right to vote the leader out who's sending you to war. I mean, so we changed. That was an entire constitutional amendment that passed.
Yeah. This New Jersey rabbi wrote this article, "The Decline and Fall of America," the other day. It's gone all over the United States. It's just everybody should read it. I sent it out. This might seem obvious, but for the obvious reasons. Romney lost because the conservative virtues, the traditional American virtues of liberty, hard work, free enterprise, private initiative, and aspirations to moral greatness no longer inspire or animate a majority of the electorate. The notion of the Reagan Democrat is a cliche that should be permanently retired. Ronald Reagan himself cannot win an election in today's America. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I think Ronald Reagan maybe would have a tougher time beating George Herbert Walker Bush in a primary. I think Ronald Reagan could win. I mean, I think Americans are motivated by dynamic leaders, and I think, you know, although Obama certainly didn't have the campaign he had in 2008, at the end of the day, you know, when you think of everything you've seen of Obama, everything we've seen, Romney's been out in the public arena for 6 years. You know, which one's more dynamic? I mean, we can all answer. If we're going to be honest, we all know which person we saw as more dynamic, and as at the end of the day, Americans tend to gravitate towards that when they have nothing else to base in which has motivated their decision.
Yeah, 10 seconds.
Well, the primaries showed just the opposite, where you had 75% of them voting for very conservative candidates, 25% of them voting for Romney. That dispels that argument because they weren't collectively around one person. They went with three people with the same.
We'll have to carry that conversation on at dinner. But right now, you got about a minute, 30 seconds to a minute. Tell America and the radio listening audience anything you'd like to say about anything you want to speak about.
Talk about Battleground Group, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, Tom, CJ, Mark, what I want to do is thank you all for having me here and putting up with putting up with me. I'm very proud that somebody thinks these numbers are worthwhile to talk about and listen to. I think I think at the end of the day, this election has something for everyone. Quite frankly. If you're a moderate Republican, conservative Republican, moderate Democrat, liberal Democrat, I think you can look at these numbers and say things went right, things went wrong, and we lost a very close election. Could more have been done and won it? Absolutely. What exactly? The jury's still out.
Your thoughts? 30 seconds.
No, thanks for coming over. I mean, I think this is a fascinating subject. You know, we agree, disagree, whatever. This is how good ideas come out, and talk them out. Iron them out, and I think that's where we go in the future, and that's how we win elections in the future.
No. Invisible Mike. CJ.
Well, I want to thank Jamie for being here. I think this has been a fantastic show. This is what we're really all about. We sit around, we talk about real things, and you've got the real data to back it up. I think it's fantastic. I look forward to having a cigar with you guys after work. And,
you smoke cigars?
And we can get
I do not, but
more
that's okay.
detail.
I'm a great secondhand
Anybody
smoker.
who doesn't want to have a cigar could have a turkey burger.
And speaking of cigars, we'll the cigar owners, we want to speak with. Hey, Jamie, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
This
Fantastic,
kind of
yes.
interaction
Fantastic.
helps people think
Yeah.
through these issues, because the party's struggling right now as to what direction to go. Some serious people are thinking third-party stuff. Some very serious people like Andy, or reformation of parties. And we're at a beautiful and historic and exciting time in history. You broke the code. These numbers are really the foundation to building the operational elements moving forward. So America, stick with us. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same channel. Tom Trento, TV Vision, Trento Vision TV, WNN 1470. We're going to have dinner. See you guys. Oh.
Here's some great news from Tom Trento, host of the daily WNN Trento Vision Show. Due to the unparalleled success of the Trento Vision Show, you now have an amazing opportunity to advertise